Let's talk about the science of availability, the availability heuristic here. Quick question. Pause the video here and answer this. Do more words begin with R or have R as the third letter? Think about that. Pop an answer in your head. It's much easier for you to think of words that start with R than have R as the third letter. More of these examples are what we call available to your mind. It's easier to draw up words in your brain that start with R than it is to find R as the third letter. It's actually more common. R is more common as the third letter in a word than it is to start off a word. That's not intuitively obvious to us because we can think of words that start with R so much easier than we can words that have R as the third letter. They're more available, we say. This leads to the availability heuristic. This is the process of judging frequency by the ease with which instances come to mind. So we've already talked about how our mind has an associative machine part of it where you'll have some sort of input and there will be sort of a cascade of thoughts that come along with it, thoughts that are associated with the previous thought, and it will just kind of keep going until system 2 kicks in. All right. So, for instance, examples are dangerous plants. We can think of those. Broken cell phone screens, kidnappings. We tend to overestimate the number of these because these are fairly easy to think of. What would you say? Especially with kidnappings and dangerous plants, you can think of extreme ones fairly easily. The dangerous plants you're probably going to underestimate. And broken cell phone screens, kidnappings, these are all things that you can think of fairly easily. All right, this is an instance of substitution. You wish to estimate the size of a category, the frequency of an event, but you report an impression of the ease with which instances come to mind. So you're trying to make an objective estimation, but what you're really answering is the question of how easy is it for me to think of examples of that thing. That's the question that you're trying to answer on the previous example. How easy is it to think of a lot of dangerous plants, broken cell phone screens, and kidnappings if you're trying to analyze the frequency of these things? I didn't make that clear previously, I don't think. Okay. All right, so some examples. Celebrity divorces, political scandals, dramatic events, plane crashes, personal experiences, pictures, vivid examples. All of these things are going to weigh on our mind more than the base rate of the things occurring and the actual frequency of which they occur. So, for instance, plane crashes, those weigh heavily in our mind. If we've just read about a plane crash, we're much more likely to overestimate the probability of a plane crash happening. Personal experiences weigh really heavily on our mind. So if we know someone that had a certain experience or that something happened to them, we're going to overestimate the likelihood that they sorry, just got a notification on my computer screen. If we know someone or we have had a personal experience with something that is infrequent, we're going to overestimate the frequency of the likelihood of that thing happening. Pictures, vivid examples, these are much more persuasive to us and much more likely to change our thinking of the likelihood of them happening than just statistics or data. Okay. All right, we're not obviously going to do that activity in the video. Final thoughts on availability. It can be often used when trying to persuade people. So it's even happened. We're in the middle of the coronavirus crisis right now. I just saw a post recently of someone wondering if anyone had met a person that had coronavirus. And this shouldn't matter for a couple reasons. One, the fact that you have met someone doesn't necessarily mean that lots of people have it or that their experience is going to scale to other people. It's just one anecdote, but it weighs really heavily on our mind, and it goes the other way as well. If just the fact that you don't know someone doesn't mean that those people that are sick or have come down with the coronavirus aren't out there. Okay, so it can be used to persuade. Again, vivid images, personal stories, those kinds of things are quite persuasive. It can be overcome. All right, so if you just think to yourself, what are the actual rates and statistics on this? Am I taking those into account, or are vivid examples weighing on my mind? Then you can overcome the availability heuristic. You being aware of it, like confirmation bias, like the other biases and heuristics we've talked about, being aware of it can help you overcome it, right? And System 2 can handle, nice typo, System 2 can handle overcoming it as long as it's frequently checking in on System 1. So as long as you're not letting your System 2 completely go to sleep, you can be a little bit critical of what System 1 is serving up, and being aware that the more vivid examples that you can conjure up are going to weigh on your analysis of the frequency or probability of something happening. And the last point here I want to make is kind of takeaway message. People think too much about the numerator and not enough about the denominator. Okay, so the fact that you can think about specific instances of things, that would be the numerator, right? It's how many of those instances have actually happened compared to the total number of whatever you're trying to analyze, right, or think about. Okay, so we think too much about the numerator, not enough about the denominator. That's the availability heuristic, because quite often the numerator is either too easy to bring to mind or not easy enough to bring to mind.